Well, the freshman seminar is an attempt to look at how Chicago River and Lake Michigan have defined the growth of the city of Chicago. It's a local example of the general principle that human societies are shaped by their natural environment. And so it gives us an opportunity to talk about Chicago as an example of this phenomenon. The defining process here are the lake and the river. So we talk about how these were produced by the ice ages, how they were the methods of navigation for the early explorers, and how they shaped the city's growth over time, and the environmental challenges that living in this very special environment offers for us today. So we went kayaking on Lake Michigan to give you a feel for what it was like for the early explorers. And I think when you actually get on the lake, even right off campus, you appreciate what a very big and a very powerful thing it is in a way which you cannot appreciate just from looking out on it. We rented kayaks through commercial firms. The Northwest Passage in Wilmette did our tour of the lake here, where we launched our boats from the Northwestern Sailing Beach and paddled along the Lakeville up to the north end of campus. And then we rented boats from Kayak Chicago and took a tour with them from essentially North Avenue. And then we went down the Chicago River to show us how the river controlled the development of the city and how very much it's a working river and how the river is still very much the heart of the city. There's all this talk about education, this fad about immersive experiences, and we're trying very hard to avoid immersive experiences, but since everybody's wearing a life jacket, there's no danger of an immersive experience. We've managed to keep everybody dry so far. What's interesting here is that we're dealing with a subject which is a very interdisciplinary sort of mix of geology and anthropology and history and political science, I guess. So we put the science in from the earth science side, but there's also a lot of interesting sort of social science aspects and cultural aspects. And that's good because we have a mix of student interests in the class. So different people with different interests can contribute different things. We've basically divided up the subject into a group of topics. Talked about the ice ages, we talked about the French explorers, we talked about current environmental issues on the lakes, we talked about the growth of the city of Chicago, talked about the Burnham Plan for the preservation of the lakeshore, and then we'll be adding some sort of purely cultural topics toward the end of it, Chicago architecture and Chicago in film and so on. So it's a range of topics. We talked about the fact that the French explorers, for example, Marquette, had to spend the winter here in 1674 because even in October he just couldn't get from Chicago to Green Bay. And at first that sounds ridiculous. And once you've been out on the lake in a small boat, that seems entirely plausible. One of the things that I like, which is one of the things that probably we do better in earth science than in most other disciplines, is try to expose people to the physical, the outdoor, the sort of tangible aspects of the subject in a way which is often not done is harder to do in other disciplines often. And I think this is a pretty good example of what makes teaching geology very special.